But would you say, small as our country may be, our situation is far more complex because we have a militant group which claims to be the chief spokespersons of the Tamil people. Then we have the moderate leaders of the Tamil who themselves don't seem united. Then we have the Muslim element. Then we have a politically divided South. And our literacy rate is much higher than, for instance, Guatemala, which seems to be one of our major problems.
Well, I would suggest that each conflict has its own complexity. If you take South Africa.
In your experience, do you see this as...
I think it is a complex conflict. It is its own history, its own actors, its own protagonists. But I don't think because of its complexity that the war could not be ended and that we cannot derive the lessons. If you take Bosnia, recently Yugoslavia, people thought it was one of the most complex problems. Every village was divided. There was division right through the population. But even there, with the assistance of the international community, the conflict was eventually controlled, tamed and managed to a situation as it is today.
All these countries where there has been successful resolution have had a third party or third parties mediate. Why not Sri Lanka? When and how will that be possible? What are your suggestions?
Well, the first point I'd like to make is that the parties to the conflict own the conflict. It is they who eventually have to resolve the conflict. In every single case, it is the parties to the conflict who decide to convene and call upon third parties. In many of the conflicts, the parties have found it useful to use a third party to create a framework of trust and confidence. Let me give you one or two examples. Take the the Palestinian conflict, tremendously intractable conflict. The superpowers had come in, there was a strategic framework in the Middle East. The Camp David, President Carter's initiative resolved part of the problem. But even then, the two major parties, the Palestinians and the Israelis, were not talking to each other. Therefore, whenever they met in public, they would use language to attack each other. So therefore, it was necessary for the two parties to find a facilitator who could carry messages between each side in a confidential way. And here, the Norwegian Terje Rod Larsen and Mona Julie were able to play that role because the two parties decided to use them as a confidential communications channel. And I must say that if you read the stories, which are very, very, very heartwarming, when the two parties actually met and were able to cook dinner together in the beautiful fjords of Oslo and take long walks together, they started exchanging human stories about each other. And this created a bond, a friendship, which cemented the basis of trust, whereupon the official negotiations could be taken forward.
So taking on from there, talks about peace talks should be confidential, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think...
will jeopardize, aren't we overdoing our transparency?
Absolutely. I think that principle behind talks before talks is the question of confidentiality. Let me give you another example of this, and that is the Northern Irish conflict. And here, for example, nobody knew that in fact a communication channel was available between Prime Minister of Britain and the IRA for almost 2 years. And here, officially, the British government was attacking the IRA was attacking Britain, but that official communication channel was extremely important. And what was the message of the IRA? The message of the IRA was, the war is over, help us to end it. I think we need to take that very seriously. The war is over, we are trapped, help us to come out of it. So here was another example where private communication channel certainly was helpful in clearing the air.